Hello guys, welcome to Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. My name's John and today I'm going to be talking about social media. Why does it have such a massive impact on our mental health? Why is it impacting young people, adults, especially adults that may have been on furlough or may have been working from home, probably have noticed that they're going to be using social media an awful lot more lately. And what I wanted to cover was why that is, what's actually going on in the background, aside from all of this Silicon Valley algorithm stuff that we all know that it advertises to us, it makes us buy things that we don't necessarily need. But aside from that, what is going on with our behaviors and how does that begin to impact our mental health? More importantly, at the end of this, what I'm going to talk through are ways in which you can begin to avoid it and make sure that social media isn't having a negative impact on your life, so that you can begin to work away from using it too much and have a healthy relationship with it. So for those of you who don't know Arthur Ellis, we are a company that is delivering one of the most accessible mental health services in the UK. We are all across the country providing digital appointments to anyone from the age of 8 onwards, and we see and speak to people who refer to us within 2 days of referral, so no more long waiting lists. The way that we do that is we work with organisations to help them understand their staff and their colleagues' mental health and begin to improve it rather than reacting when it gets bad. So if you're an organisation and you want to help us drive and build this mental health service for young people, for adults, to be able to access help when they need it, then please get in touch. I'd be really, really keen to talk to you. And I hope you enjoy the video. So earlier on this week, I was watching an interview with Jaron Lanier on Channel 4. And it was all about social media and why it's ruining our lives. And a lot of the talk was around algorithms. It was around influencing our decision making, around buying things and advertisements and all of that sort of stuff. But we kind of all know that. We know that social media does that. We know that it targets us for specific things. So what I wanted to do was explore why it actually has a massive impact on our behaviour. And at the real root cause of things, there's not really an awful lot that we can do around the algorithms. We can't exactly call up Zuckerberg and ask him to change things just to help us out. They're not going to do that. So what can we begin to do ourselves that's actually going to have a positive impact with our relationship with social media? We've seen loads and loads of a massive increase in the use of social media over the lockdown period. A lot of people haven't had anything better to do. So people have been using social media an awful lot more. We've seen this in the rise of TikTok. We've seen it in the rise of all of these different videos that came out during lockdown around working out at home, loads of exercise tips and loads of different exercise videos that you can get involved in. But actually what happens is we end up watching them and not actually doing the exercise. We just end up scrolling all day and we don't actually begin to do any of the positive things that we're being told to do through these videos. So I don't know if anyone ever can relate to that. We just sit there scrolling, all of a sudden it's replaced all of these different things that we should have been doing, but we've just been sat there scrolling. So what I wanted to do was talk you through why that's such an issue, what happens to us when we're doing that, and rather than focusing on algorithms and things that we can't necessarily change, how on earth do we begin to change our behaviours, change this relationship that we have with social media, no matter what your age is? So this applies for kids, it applies for young people, adolescents, and adults as well. So a lot of adults who may have been furloughed, may have been working from home, have probably noticed that their social media usage has gone up. What we have seen since the release of smartphones is that there's been a correlation between teen suicide. So the more smartphones have become prevalent within our society, the more teen suicide has gone up. That's horrendous. And obviously we need to be able to do something about that. We don't want that to persist. We don't want that to continue. And it's not necessarily purely down to all of these algorithms, our buying techniques or anything like that. It's all down to our behaviors. And what we can begin to do if we can recognize why this is happening is begin to put certain things in place for ourselves, for the people around us, to make sure that it's not going to be having that massive impact. And to be honest, I'm a little bit fed up with a lot of people talking about social media in children, talking about social media in adults, but not actually providing any solutions around it. So I'm really hoping that I can do this for you today. But If you do have any further questions, if you do want to find out any more or speak to us about it, or if you recognise these issues yourself, then head over to our website. It's arthurellismhs.com. We've got different guides on there. We've got loads of free stuff, so you can download those for nothing, but also you can just pop us a message. Through that, you can see some positive things and you can actually use it for your benefit. There are loads of different things that we can do that's going to really, really benefit our well-being, whether that's exercise, whether it's being social with people, whether it's learning new things. All of these different things contribute towards our well-being. So whatever it is that we do, we might enjoy art, we might enjoy coding and developing, we might enjoy the gym, we might enjoy walking. There's loads of different things that we need as human beings in order to operate really, really well. We don't necessarily operate great from being locked in a bedroom. I found out something the other week which was quite surprising, and it was that children and young people across the UK on average spend less time outdoors than maximum security prisoners. To me, that's awful. It's not necessarily a massive shock, because you can kind of appreciate that, yes, you don't really see kids out an awful lot. I remember when I was younger, I was always in the park, always out doing something. And now it's very, very different. The landscape of it all has completely changed. Locked in our rooms, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Facebook, looking at different things. So what does that do to us? Ultimately, we have different types of behaviours. Some of our behaviours are driven towards protecting our well-being, and they're called protective factors. And then some of our behaviours are drawn towards maintaining the state that we're in. So we have protective factors which give us a boost, and we have maintenance factors that keep us at the same level or maybe even begin to drop them down. So if we are doing maintenance factors, which are like indulgent behaviours, I refer to them as donuts in some of our work. They're kind of the things that you can have now and then, but if you have them too much, it's not going to be very good for you. So maintenance factors are very, very different for different people. But let me provide you with a bit of an example. So we all love Netflix. We watch Netflix and we have binge on series and all of that sort of stuff. And that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing that day in, day out, and you're doing that every day, and it's beginning to replace things that protect your well-being, like these things like exercise, painting, art, anything creative, learning new things, getting out in nature, if it begins to knock off those protective factors, we get this imbalance within our lives that is much more around maintenance and maybe even negative behaviors rather than those positive ones that give us that boost. So what we begin to see is a little bit of a downward trajectory over time. So for example, if we are engaging in exercise every day, we're going out for walks in nature, we're learning new things, then that's going to be a positive improvement on our well-being. All of those little things that we do give us a little bit of an improvement. But if those positives get outweighed by these maintenance factors or these negatives, then we're going to begin to have a bit of an imbalance. So our trajectory tends to go down. And what we've seen with the increase of smartphones, the increase of usage on social media, is that many, many more people are engaging in maintenance behaviours like staying on the sofa all day, like staying in bed all day, not opening the blinds even. After you begin to use up your time throughout the day, you have a lot less time left, obviously. If you are sat there scrolling, and then all of a sudden you were meant to go to the gym, you were meant to do some exercise, you were meant to do some work, you were meant to do a course, the time slowly eats away at those things and it begins to just take away your protective factors from you. And that's what we're seeing. Never mind algorithms, never mind what we're actually seeing on social media, which is a completely different story. But it is beginning to take over these positive things that we do for our well-being. It's being replaced by sitting in our rooms, laying on our beds all day, sitting on our sofa all day. If you look at the behaviours of somebody that is depressed, so somebody that has clinical depression, diagnosed, the typical behaviours that you're going to see is fatigue, it's lethargy, it's not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, not wanting to speak to people, not wanting to communicate with others or go out. So if we're behaving in that way because of social media, and if you were to put somebody in a room that wasn't depressed at all, and you were to ask them to behave like that for 2 weeks, they're going to become depressed. So we are teaching ourselves, or we're learning from the usage of social media, how to become depressed. So no wonder why these issues are beginning to increase on a huge, huge scale. So what we need to begin to do is shift our behaviours and see that, yes, we can go on social media. We can do these maintenance factors, or these donut behaviours, as we call them in Arthur Ellis. But they're indulgent behaviours. Rather than they're our everyday things, they need to become indulgencies. So we don't do them all day. We don't do them all the time. We have to build up protective factors that are strong enough that keep us away from that. If your protective factors aren't strong enough, you're going to be so easily sucked in to doing those maintenance factors behaviours. Another example for people who work. So if you're in the office, it's a really, really busy week, but typically you enjoy maybe getting away from your desk and going for a walk at lunchtime. If you're really stressed, if you're really, really busy, the first thing that's going to go is that lunchtime walk. You are going to not necessarily feel like it, you're not going to have the energy for it, but that is a maintenance factor creeping in. So you've got your walk at lunchtime, which is a protective factor, and more than likely, you're probably going to go get some takeout, something really quick and easy for lunch. You're not going to fancy the healthy, nice stuff that you brought in. So instead of going for a walk and something that's really, really protective of your well-being, you're going to replace it with something that is detrimental. So that's the small little changes that we begin to see when something like a depressive cycle starts setting in. So it's more extreme than that over time, but it doesn't take very long for those behaviours to get embedded, and then all of a sudden we're stuck in a rut where it's much, much harder to get out. So if you are finding yourself being a little bit more addicted to social media, and addiction I know is a strong word, but it is absolutely relevant. If you found yourself beginning to be a lot more attached to it, maybe not being able to get away from it too much, then you need to start focusing on those protective factors. Maybe look back a few weeks. What's changed? What have you replaced? What are you missing out on? Because it's not going to be very good for you in the long term. And that's what we can begin to do. Another issue that social media brings is that we begin to compare our lives to others. We did a show not too long ago, which was around making sure that you keep your children well during school breaks. So it was focused on a half term, and especially for those children who are first in their first year of school, when they're going to be starting to hang out with their friends, maybe visiting other homes. If you're from an area, or if you haven't got a big house or anything like that, and all of a sudden your children are going into other children's houses and seeing what they have that they might not have, that's going to begin to start posing questions. Is this right? Am I being deprived of things? Why do they have stuff and I don't? That's what social media is doing to us. Even as adults, we have our own lives that we have to deal with. But sometimes we get to see what other people have that we don't have, and we can become resentment. There could be a massive build-up of resentment towards that. We can kind of get a bit frustrated and a bit angry, not necessarily at the other people, because you begin to weirdly admire them, but at the same time you begin to feel angry and you begin to feel annoyed at yourself for not having what other people have. You have what you have. Maybe if you weren't on social media too much, you would be able to start working towards the other things that you might not have. But that's where this stuck in a rut phase gets in. You get stuck in this cycle of being so embedded what other people have that you don't spend any time getting it for yourself. We've also got to remember that all of these people who are on social media, that is their job. That's what they do. If you have a full-time job, if you work, if you've got a family, then you cannot put yourself in the same kind of boundary of the amount of time that somebody who literally does social media all the time. I find it really difficult to fit everything else into my day without it impacting on my protective factors, which I mentioned earlier on in the show. And these people are going to have people to edit videos, people to shoot videos, people locations. It's a business. They are a business. They are meant to keep you coming back. They're meant to have followers. Followers is something else that I really want to talk about a little bit later on, because the whole concept is a little bit odd to me, and I'll like to tell you why. But everybody that we are following or we are looking at on social media and we're comparing our lives to theirs, we've got to stop. If you are doing that, unfollow them. They are not helpful to your life. If you are in that kind of rut of, I've noticed that I'm looking at a lot more social media than I used to, what you should try and do is do a social media cleanse. Now, not necessarily just saying delete all your apps, get rid of everything, leave it for a month, because in a month's time or 2 months' time, you're just going to be back in exactly the same position as you are now. But if you have noticed that your social media usage has gone up quite a lot, maybe you're starting to replace more positive things with just sitting there scrolling, then what we need to begin to do is start building up those protective factors. One of the main protective factors that you can start to build up is the people that you follow. So instead of just having a massive break from it, go through your followers list and ask yourself with each one, do I want their life or are they adding to mine? If they're adding to yours, keep them. If you want their lives, get rid of them. You won't have their lives. You're you. Your life is your life. You shouldn't be aspiring to have the exact life as somebody else. Even if you were to have everything that they were to have, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're going to be happy with different people. Don't aspire to be somebody else. So that's what we mean by a social media cleanse, is going through all of those people that you follow, all of those people that come up on your news feed. And if they do not add to your life and you want theirs, then get rid of them. They are not helpful for you. Another massive thing that we're becoming more and more conditioned to with the rise of social media is lying and manipulation. That might sound a little bit extreme, but bear with me. Lying and manipulation within social media is rife. If you look at all of these different videos that go on, all of these different channels that have prank videos, or all of these different channels that may have funny videos, all of them are set up. It's not like it's just hundreds of thousands of happy coincidences that are going on that just happen to have a camera out. We are being manipulated to see all of these different things that are well planned out. I've seen a few that really put people in danger. And it's sad to me that we are growing more and more conditioned to that type of behaviour. That isn't healthy behaviour. To get more followers and to get more views and likes and all of these different things, it's becoming more and more risky behaviour that we're seeing. People putting themselves in danger, people putting other people in danger, all of these different things that are just amounting to a really, really unhealthy relationship with other people. It's not necessarily just that they will probably have a really unhelpful or unhealthy relationship with themselves in order to do that, but they are going to be starting to really impact relationships around them as well. Do you want that? Do you want to start manipulating the people around you in order to get likes, in order to get comments? What happens when you reach, 1,000 comments on a video? Or what happens when you reach 1 million views? Because I can probably tell you, not that I have, but I can probably tell you that it's not actually going to change a massive amount about your life. But what you will recognise is those different behaviours will just increase and increase, becoming more manipulative of different situations in order to gain that following or to gain those likes. It's not healthy. And typically, the reason why we're aspiring for that is because we are unfulfilled in other areas of our lives. There was this really, really good experiment done in Canada. It's called Rat Park. And I don't necessarily condone treatment of animals in this way. I don't want to say that. But it's a very, very good experiment. So bear with me. So they had a cage and they put a rat in a cage. And it was to look at how they would respond to drugs. So they had 2 different water bottles. One water bottle was lovely, clean, pure filtered water, right? It would be completely healthy, no problem at all. The other water bottle had a drug in it with water. So I believe it was cocaine. I think they also did the experiment with morphine. They've done this experiment a few times. So this cage had nothing in it. The rat was just plonked in this cage. It had nothing around it. It was just a bare, sad, horrible, dull cage. Every single time the rat went for the drug water, every single time, as you can imagine. But then they built Rat Park. So Rat Park was this incredible cage. It had everything in it. It had toys, it had slides, it had all of these different activities, it had all of these different enrichment things that could be possible for an animal. When you go to the zoo, you see different tires and you see different things around an animal's enclosure that give them that enrichment, it's called. So exactly the same. They had water, which was nice, pure, filtered, lovely, anybody could drink it water. And then alongside that, they had the drug water again. And in Rat Park, where it was all of these incredible games, all of these incredible slides and toys that the rats could play with, they did not touch the drug water at all. It was amazing. They didn't touch it. Because they had fulfillment around them. They had other things that they could do. They had enough protective factors in order to avoid the maintenance factors, which was the drugs. So why are we beginning to become so involved with social media? Why are we beginning to be so addicted to scrolling? And that's because we haven't got enough fulfillment built around us. We don't have that. It's not being, our lives aren't shaped in that way. We go to work, we come home, we commute, we maybe eat something quick because we haven't got enough time. We need to shift things so we have more fulfillment around us so that we begin to get out of those behaviors. Another issue that I've recognised really on the increase that I wanted to talk about was over-sexualisation. And it seems to have got a lot more worse lately with the introduction of TikTok. But what I've recognised is that people are getting more likes, or they're getting all of these new followers and all of that sort of stuff if they show a bit of skin. And this is a really, really bad message that influencers are sending to our young people. It's really dangerous. Because not only is it wrong that you should gain followers or gain notoriety or gain likes, gain friends by showing more of your body, but it also then provides a false expectation of who you actually are. You aren't giving people anything else apart from that. You are just showing people that you are a body. You aren't a mind. You aren't anything further than that. You need to expand on what you're actually showing. And I get, the modelling profession and different professions are sort of in that world. But we're seeing more and more young people getting involved in it as well. And I don't have the solutions for this one. I don't really know how we can begin to change that. So if anyone has any particular thoughts on it or wants to speak to us about it, I would be really interested in trying to figure that out, because it doesn't necessarily just open young people up to a lot of risk by getting a lot of private messages and all of that sort of stuff. But it also begins, for the people who are watching all of this and people who are looking at this an awful lot, it begins to provide a false expectation of what you're able to get out of somebody. So if you are, if you do have aspirations further than just Instagram, or if you do have more to your life, hobbies, interests, things that maybe you speak 10 languages, but all you do is take pictures of your bum and post them on the internet, then people aren't going to see those other sides of you, and then they're going to have a different expectation of what you're all about and what they might be able to engage with you in. So what we really need to do is start shifting that. I don't necessarily know how. It seems like it's kind of an out of control train, and I'm a little bit concerned that one day it will blow up. But it's something that we really need to shift. And at the moment, all I can suggest is really focusing on these protective factors. One of the reasons I believe why more and more young people are getting involved in that is because of the different things that I've mentioned today. There might be other people with other opinions. Please get in touch if there is. I'd be really, really keen to understand that. But if we don't have that fulfillment, if we don't have that enrichment within our lives that comes from exercise, it comes from learning new things, it comes from being around people that are actually our friends and that are actually adding something to our lives, then we are going to begin to get sucked into this trap and into those ruts of behaviour where we are just laying on our sofas and scrolling all day, every day. We're not going to get any work done. We're not going to want to do any work after a little while. We need to start building up our protective factors a lot more in order to cope with the rise of these different technologies, in order to cope with the rise of these different social media platforms that come out. So what I want you to do from here is take a look at how you're using social media. Is it impacting on these protective factors or these positive things that you do for your well-being? Maybe you don't even know what those things are. So sit down and have a look. What do I do every day or every week? Maybe have a look at a week worth of behaviours. How often do you exercise? How often do you walk your dog? How often do you play with your cat? How often do you learn something? And I'm not necessarily saying learning it on the internet, because if you are really in that rut, then it might be counterproductive. But go and speak to somebody else, learn something from someone else. If you don't know how to do something, ask someone to teach you. Start looking at all of these really good things that you probably lost through scrolling, and start replacing scrolling with these new things again. That is a massive lifestyle shift, and I totally get that it's not that simple all the time, but it's a starting point. You don't have to do everything all at once. But if you can begin to recognize that, okay, I've watched 3 episodes of my favourite TV show on Netflix and the sun's starting to go down, I really wanted to go for a walk. Start being more disciplined with yourself. Get yourself out, go for that walk. Stop watching Netflix. I've done it. I do it all the time. It's a real problem for everybody. It's not just you. It's everyone's in the same boat. But this is what it's doing to us. So we need to begin recognizing when we're doing it. Because if we're recognizing when we are unwell, then it's already too late. It's going to be a lot harder to get back out of that cycle when you're already in it. It's not impossible. There's so much hope and there's so many services out there. We can help you with that if you are really stuck in that rut. So come to us, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to somebody if you really feel like you're in that real tiresome rut. But if you are recognizing that your social media usage has begun to go up, have a look at what you've lost beforehand. If you can't do that exact same thing that you might have lost because of lockdown, because of the coronavirus, because of different facilities not necessarily being open, then adjust it. Look at something similar that you can do and you can get engaged in. So stop scrolling, start protecting your well-being, start taking a look at it really, really seriously, because you will get stuck in a rut. I really hope that's been helpful. If you do want to find out any more about us, please head over to arthurellismhs.com. We run a one-to-one service. We work with businesses, we work with corporates in order to help fuel and drive our service that's going to be the most accessible mental health service the UK has ever seen.